The more I see successful people, the more I see the mentality that they have in order to become successful. You see, for some reason, there's this idea that I don't know. I think it's coming from school. There's the whole idea of the philosophy of school, where you start one grade and you go to the next grade and you go to the next grade and you go to the next grade and then you graduate and then you go to college and then you graduate and then you end up getting a job. Then you go from job to like your next job. Then you get a raise and then you start moving up and up and up and up and then you end up retiring. And like there's this whole process that is built out for us from a young age that we're just put into the system. And I'm not talking the system or a system like the Matrix or whatever it is, but for most of us, we're in this system and we have this idea or we look forward to the time when we're going to retire. And what's interesting is that the people who retire are, I would say, there are people who are very thrilled with it. And I think there are time periods where people are very thrilled with it, but a lot of them are extremely bored. And there was a study done. I don't have the study on me. I heard a study that was done that 5 years after somebody retires is the average time somebody dies. And this is average, so this is not everybody, but not most people or average of people die 5 years after they retire. And it's so interesting because the more I see successful people, the more I see that they put themselves in situations that they're looking to grow, they're looking to take things to the next level. And I was recently speaking to a client of mine, and he's looking to scale his company, and he wants to take things to the next level. And I thought he was taking it. He's doing 2 million a year, and he's trying to take it to like 5 million, maybe 10 million. He's like, no, if I want to take it to 100 million, I was like, whoa. I mean, I didn't say that to him, but I was thinking that. I was like, okay, now we're talking about like a different game over here. And he was talking about how he wants to take it to 100 million, and that mindset, that shift that he's going to need to have in terms of the projects that he's working on currently versus the project that he's going to need to be getting versus and the skills that are going to need to be necessary in order to become successful is so big when it comes to the things that we want to be doing. And it really is a shift that we need to start to make in our own lives, because if we do not make this shift, if we do not tell ourselves that we can do X, Y, and Z, then I'm telling you, things are going to be totally, totally different. And it's on us to be able to say to ourselves, hey, you know what? If I want to really become successful, I need to be able to do certain things. And the underlining principle of wanting and being able to have the confidence to try new things is your self belief. It's your true belief about what it is you think about in your mind about who you are. And that doesn't mean you can't be tough on yourself. And it doesn't mean that you can't be nice to yourself. But what it does mean is that if you want to become successful, if you want to take things to the next level, you have to start building this repertoire of things in your own life that you overcame. And they can be very small at the beginning, certain challenges that you have overcome. For me personally, I'm an introvert by nature, and I don't like going over to random people and saying hi to them. And I used to always like walk by somebody on the street, and I always thought I would say hi, and I would say good morning or hi, whatever it is. And for some reason, like nobody ever responded. And I was like, what's going on here? And I one time was walking with my wife and I asked her, I'm like, why did the guy say hi back? She's like, well, you whispered it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said it so loud. So like the next time I did it, I said good morning to somebody. Like he's like yelled it at the guy, right? But he and he had to say good morning back. I was like, hey, got one finally. And for me, that was something that was big because okay, in the grand scheme of the thing, like who cares? But it's just saying good morning to somebody on the street. But for me, that's like a big deal. Being able to push myself and to say, hey, I now have this one win that I got where I was able to say hi to somebody and they responded back to me. And I said it in a loud enough voice that they were able to respond back. And I think that is something that we all need to start to think about ourselves. What is it that we want to be doing? What are the small things that we can start to build? And then as we get bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of the mass of the scale that we want, then we have the ability to really start to take things to the next level. And I think that's where things get really, really exciting. So when it comes to the skills that we want, understanding that if we would push ourselves and we become better at those skills, then we have the ability to take things to the next level. And this client of mine, I was so impressed with because his whole shift, like the business that he's doing now, that he's doing 2 million a year, is not going to be the same business that he's going to be doing 10 million a year. He's going to have to learn new skills. He can use similar ideas and similar skills, but the projects he's going to have to take on are going to be so much bigger. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that he's realistic about it and understanding, hey, I need to be doing bigger and better things. That is something that is so powerful. And to me, I was like so inspired by that. I'm like, wow, this guy's looking to grow. He's looking to become bigger. And, for some people, they might say, well, you know what, Bennett, Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, you're never going to achieve everything you're going to want to achieve. And if you're always shooting for more, then like, what's the point? Because you're never going to achieve it. You might be right, and you probably are right. And King Solomon says that, and he says, when you die, you're gonna, if you have one, you're gonna want two. If you want two, you're want four. You're always going to be wanting more. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But what I do think is wrong is that we end up selling ourselves short because it's hard, or because we don't know what is necessary. We don't know what we need to be doing, or we just are a little scared about what's necessary and what needs to be done. And that is something that is so powerful for so many of us. We have the ability to see certain success, and for some reason, we just can't get ourselves to do it. So recognizing that if we have this ability to take things on our list and really look to be able to transition and to transform them into bigger things and be okay with the unknown, that is something that is powerful. And it all starts with our self-belief. And what's interesting about self-belief is that you can have very high confidence about certain things, and then you can really get knocked down. There's one time I had a client who he ended up calling me up. He was actually an old camper of mine. He texted me on LinkedIn. He chatted me on LinkedIn, and he was like, "Hey Ben, I heard you're doing this coaching thing. I have a question. Any chance you could jump on a call?" I'm like, "Sure." You are now considered a warm lead. I am very happy to jump on this call. And we ended up jumping on a call, and we started speaking. And he told me like what was going on. And he was he's in the real estate world, and he was in sales in the real estate world, and he ended up getting embarrassed in front of a bunch of his colleagues. He was at an event, and he was actually running the event, and one of somebody who came to the event embarrassed him in front of everybody. And from that moment on, his confidence in his sales like just fell. He just was like doing terribly. And this is somebody who his company was doing $500 million of sales a year. And what was interesting also is that he was also the co-owner of the company. So literally the guy is like co-owner of the company doing $500 million of sales a year. And he's telling me, he's like, I need help with my confidence to do my sales. And I was like, all right, well, you could probably teach me about the sales thing, and I'll teach you about the confidence thing, and then we'll do that combo, and then we'll just make it happen. And what was interesting is that we ended up working on ourselves. And the first thing, it sounds so crazy, especially as somebody who literally his job is all about sales and has been paid lots of money to do sales. Literally the first thing we did was we broke it down. Like, what's the first things that you get nervous about? He's like, I just can't pick up the phone. I was like, all right, guess what we're doing? We're literally just going to pick up your phone. So pick up your phone. And let's just, what the homework was the first week is like, we're going to call 5 people. We're going to hope they don't pick up. And if they do pick up, then okay, great. But the homework is to just dial 5 numbers. Just dial 5 numbers. Like, who cares if they pick up, don't pick up? And it's really just getting back into it. And the first week he did that. And then the second week, okay, let's call 5 people and let's leave a message. And then let's call the next week, let's 5 people and get on the phone with them. And even if we get a no, that's fine, because we're just looking to speak to them. And then we can look to get into the sales process. And then after a couple of weeks, guess what? Bam, back at it. And I remember like that first sale that he made, he was so happy. He was so proud of himself that he did it. And it was the work that he did, because that work is like the scariest work in the moment. And you know that you should be good, and you know that everything should be, different and this and that. But when you're in it, it's petrifying. There's somebody I know who was going through like terrible anxiety that they weren't able to leave their house. Like, that's bad. And they weren't able to do that. And you take it for granted that you can do all these things, and you take it for granted that you have certain successes in certain areas. And we think we're like not vulnerable, and we think that we're so strong and we can do so much. But guess what? Things do happen. Like, we don't know what those things are going to be, and we really have to build ourselves up. And the more we can have that self-belief, then the more it's going to be able to tell us and to show us what it is that we can start to do. And, what was really cool about that story, just, the last story I mentioned, is my client texted me 4 months after we worked with each other for 3 months and then took a break. And then after the 4th month, he sent me a picture, and it was an honor of being the top salesperson, not in his company, not in his little town, but in his state. Like, out of the states in America, he was the top salesperson in his state. And he was just showing his gratitude. And I was so proud of him, because I was like, dude, like, I'm so impressed and so proud. And it was so inspiring to me. And I think we all have those different things that we know we should be doing. Maybe we know we can be learning a skill to get a little bit better at. Maybe we could build our own self-belief by, number one, just recognizing the things that we're good at. Number two is learning certain skills that are going to only help us move forward. And if we start to do these things, then that really changes so much of the life that we want to be living. And we have to realize, and you have to realize, that you have that ability. You can change. You can become better, and it's not going to happen overnight. And you need to be patient. It's like one of the things that I'm being very impatient with nowadays is I want to get better at public speaking. And I have this course that I bought, and there's these things that I watch, and there's things that I try to do within all the different talks that I give and whatnot. And I want to get better and better and better. But I know it's going to take time. But I know if I just stick with it and I pick one thing to focus on, one thing in this video that I'm going to work on, then all of a sudden, then I have the ability to become better at speaking. And I know over time, by me working on it for 5 years, for 10 years, it's not reasonable for me not to be successful at it. And these are all different skills that if you want to learn, that you have to figure out. And yeah, guess what? Sometimes you're gonna have to pay money for it. I had to buy a course, right? I had to buy a course on creating, a YouTube channel and this and that. And like, I have over 800 subscribers, which, okay, for some people that's like not great, but for other people, like, that's awesome. And for me, okay, it's been close to a year and it hasn't like taken off and it's not like famous and this and all that. That's fine. But understanding, I'm going to stay committed to it, because as long as I stay committed and I stay curious and I start to get just a little bit better every single time, then all of a sudden things happen, things change, and things just start to work differently. So ask yourself, where is it that you want to be? Who is it that you want to become? What are the beliefs you want to have about yourself? And I think a lot of times it's not just the skills that we have, but it's understanding, the things that I've went through in the past, and I've thrived or even survived, and just getting by those things. Those are the things that we have to realize, we could take those to help us move forward. And I'll give an example. Like, if somebody's going through a rough patch of finding a job, or, they're in a job that they don't like. So a lot of times, and I've been there, so I can talk about this. It's like when you're in that job or when you're trying to figure out things that work, like the rest of your life is like terrible. Like everything is so better. You can't come home with your kids. You have zero patience. Your wife, you keep snapping at. Like might be making comments about finances, and you're like, no, like stop it. I need to do this. I need to figure out myself. And maybe it's a guy thing. Like our egos need to be like making this work, but understanding that there are other areas of our life that we don't take advantage of. For example, also another thing, it's like you have a bad day at work and all of a sudden you go to the freezer and you just start to have ice cream. Like all these things add up. And the question really you need to ask ourselves is like, what's going on here? And if we could realize, hey, you know what? I can start to shift. I can start to change things. That can make things a little bit different. Then all of a sudden we have the ability to move ourselves forward and to really take advantage of the things that we want. Because for so many of us, we have this ability. We want to be able to move forward, but we can't. And it's really, really tough. And if we can start to recognize, hey, you know what? I'm going to remind myself of those times. That time when I didn't have a job, it was not a great time. But guess what? If I'm in that time again in a couple of years from now, what would I have wished that I'd done differently the first time around that I could do now? What's something that I could start to shift and start to change that I could do now? And those are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because things are going to go up and things are going to go down. And there's going to be stressful times and there are going to be exciting times, and it's going to keep happening. And we need to be students and we need to learn from them and understand that there's going to be seasons. There's going to be different seasons. There's going to be times where things are just falling apart and things just look like it's so cloudy and so dark, and times where you're going to have such clarity. I remember there were 2 times in my life where I had such an incredible clarity or feeling that I've never felt it any other time. Number one was when my son was born. My first son was born. That feeling, was not expecting that feeling, that emotion, that cry that I gave. I was like so emotional. It was crazy. It was like such an intense cry. And the second time is this, when I really started to believe myself that I could start to do coaching and that I had this ability to become an entrepreneur and to do certain things. And the excitement that I had and the clarity that I had was so powerful. And I think for certain people, you don't know what's going to come, and everyone says, oh, you just have to keep pushing and you'll find it and this and that. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to come for you. I don't know. But I will guarantee this. If you don't look for it, it's not going to come. I can guarantee you that. And that is something that you need to start to figure out for yourself. And you need to start to see what are the steps that need to be taken in order to become successful, in order to see that and have that clarity. And if we could start to work on ourselves and start to remind ourselves that even during the bad times, there's going to be good times, or vice versa, like maybe not vice versa, but what we have to try to do is like we have to realize that we've been through this once, we're going to go through it again. And the question is, when the times are down, are we going to thrive and learn to get from it and to still focus on the other areas of our life? Or are we going to just stay down and make it better and just hope this thing ends quickly so we can get out of it? And those are questions we need to ask ourselves. And I think if we can start to remind ourselves and build that belief up about ourselves, that is something that is so powerful when it comes to the things that we want to be doing. So ask yourself, what is it that you need to believe in about more? What is it that about yourself that you really do like about yourself? And if you can start to figure that stuff out, then all of a sudden we have this ability to start to really start to shift so much in our own personal lives and really start to do things a little bit differently in order to just see the lives that we want to be seeing. See everybody on the next one. Don't forget to take a look at the links below. And if you haven't taken a look at my book yet, what are you doing? It's on Amazon. It's less than $10. Go for it. See you all on the next one.